Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. My name is Christina. This is a reading for Twin Flame Union. I'm reading the energy of the connection, so it is meant for both counterparts. I'm not going to sort of distinguish between Divine Feminine, Divine Masculine, though there may be some of that energy that comes through. We will see. So I've already pulled your cards. We're going to start with the bottom of the deck energy, which is absolutely gorgeous today. We have this dolphin card and the joy music, which I absolutely adore because I think it was the last Twin Flame Union reading that was called The Joy That Never Wavers. And that was sort of the challenge or the area of growth for the twins, was to find what it is that brings us satisfaction as an individual, right? Like finding inner peace and inner joy is basically what this is talking about. And for it to be the underlying energy of this reading is absolutely gorgeous, which is talking about growth, that there has been growth, that the twins, the counterparts that I'm connecting with, have found this sort of joy that never wavers, which is absolutely lovely. And then you have here the Nine of Cups, which is fulfillment, which is all of that sort of emotional stability and security within self, right? Like finding the things that that bring you happiness and joy internally, right? It's not an external sort of like it could be related to sort of external things, but it's not. But that fulfillment and happiness and satisfaction comes from within, is basically what this is talking about. And then what's gorgeous here is that you have the Magic Alchemy card and the Magician, which is absolutely gorgeous, talking about creating, because you are creating from a place of fulfillment and joy and happiness from self. All of this sort of magic and possibility is sort of revealed and being able to come into fruition. And finally, I'm using a lot of decks today, so I might end up skipping some cards, but we have this Illumination and Determination, which is all of this gorgeous solar plexus energy, which is where the joy is coming from, right? All of this sort of willpower, happiness, creativity, all of that. It's this just gorgeous energy for the twin flame connection today. So we're gonna start with the current energy, and the first card out you have is the Swans, which I love so much because this is very much a twin flame card for me. And so what this is talking about is that I feel that both counterparts are absolutely focused on the connection. This is the priority. And what you have here, which is interesting, is the Peacock, which I'm sort of seeing as being outside influences, and fill in the blank for you, whatever that is, because there could be a whole bunch of different things that this could represent, right? The Peacock comes in with this energy of sort of like superficiality, could be, right? Like things that have sort of short-term gain, right? Like there's some aspect of beauty or appeal or allure with the Peacock, but it ultimately is not as deep as this connection is. That's just how I'm gonna leave it. Fill in the blank for you, whatever that is. It could be like a job or work in general, or it could be friends, it could be family. All of the sort of the things that are outside of your connection with your counterpart. And then here you have the Lion, which came out last, but I wanted to put it in between sort of like this because I feel like for both counterparts, right, this is the current energy of the connection, is that there is this sort of strength in sort of defending or keeping out any sort of outside influence that may sort of interfere or compromise or I just want to use the word interfere with the connection or with your counterpart. So how this is being described with the other decks is you have here the Connection Biome card, which I absolutely adore, right? It's like what this was coming through with is like creating sort of an ecosystem between you and your counterpart, right? The world in quotation marks, the biome, the ecosystem, that you are creating with your twin, even if you are at a distance, right? If you're not sort of in physical union yet, there is sort of this etheric connection that is absolutely safe and protected with this Lion card, safe and protected from any sort of outside influence. But the Lion is coming out with this energy of caution for this deck. So again, you have all this gorgeous yellow energy, which is talking about like willpower and sort of sovereignty, right? Like having sort of your own independence and all that. It could also include protection just generally, especially because it's coming through with the caution card, because I do feel like there are sort of, or there will be perhaps with the current energy, influences in your environments that may almost like distract you from the connection, is kind of how it's feeling. And it's, I don't want to say that it's like an intentional, right? Like there's not kind of any sort of like intentional intent to kind of like derail this connection. I'm not so much getting that, because the peacock I don't see as like a negative energy. It's more so one that's like curious or are trying to present their best selves. If it is a person, right? It doesn't have to be. There's some aspect of like protect or like presenting the best possible version in order to draw other people in, and it could be drawing you and your counterpart in, is kind of how this is coming through. And the peacock is coming through though with this energy of deception and defeat. So deception, meaning I don't think it's necessarily an intent to deceive. It could be though, I'm not gonna lie, it could be an intent to deceive with the peacock. But there is that sort of like element of like flashiness, right? There's some sort of deception or inauthenticity, I'm going to say, with the peacock that is being sort of defeated, right? Because you do have this lion who is cautious. I feel like there's an element here of like both twins are sort of on the lookout for this energy in both regards, right? There's going to be some sort of deceptive energy in each of the twins' experience that, if the twins choose that option, can interfere with the connection in some way. Not on a permanent basis, I want to say. If your counterpart, for example, does choose this option, I feel like it will be made very clear very quickly that this energy is a deceptive energy, because it's coming through immediately after that with defeat, right? It's kind of like you need to sort of recognize or like sort of interact with this deception energy a little bit in order to recognize that it is false in some way. But what I'm really noticing here is the 6 swords in front as sort of like a barrier. And the 6 of swords, of course, is the transition energy. So I feel like the connection, the energy of the connection is that both twins are choosing the connection and blocking themselves off from any energies that are deceptive or not. That is basically how I'm going to leave it. But it was also coming through with the choices, that it's going to sort of present as a choice of like something that you can choose to do. But I feel like both twins are sort of aware that this energy is present and that there is sort of a required defense or defeat of that energy. Okay. And then what you have here is the Ace of Discs and the 10. So the Ace and the 10 of Pentacles, which I absolutely adore because they look so similar. And then you have here the Prince of Wands, which is instigation, which is just talking about sort of like a new start or a new direction. What this card is talking to me about today, because this Ace of Pentacles came out in yesterday's Aquarius reading, which I'll post above just in case that applies to you, that there's something about with the line here, Okay, so this is talking about a lot, which I'm gonna try to get into, like, just summarize. But the lion's coming through with like king energy and strength. So I feel like there's a dynamic within the connection where one or both counterparts are having to use a lot of strength and maintain sort of a strong position, and because of that, there's not a lot of movement possible for one or both counterparts, right? Whatever resonates for you. Because this was coming through sort of like in yesterday's reading as being like chess moves, but being the ace, it was sort of the moves possible by the king in chess, which is very sort of limited. You can only move one space at a time. So that's sort of what this energy is coming out with, but it's coming out with the 10 of Pentacles, which is so interesting because of course the ace is talking about a beginning and it says wealth, and then the 10 of Pentacles talks about establishment. So it could be establishing wealth or something like that. There's this element here where one person may be at the beginning of some sort of cycle, where the other person is at the end of that same cycle. So this is bringing in a lot of the energy of like, I can't remember which reading it was, but it was another twin flame union reading about how twins go through different cycles at different times, right? One person is starting a cycle while the other is ending that same cycle. Is kind of how this is feeling. So I feel like there's that kind of dynamic there as well. So I'm going to leave that section there. I'm going to move on to what is something that you need to know. So we have here these interesting cards, the tarantula and the oyster. So the tarantula I always see as being sort of like a spider that's just lost its web. So there's this element of structure or stability that has been lost by one or both, I want to say. You could both be going through something like this where there's some sort of structure or sense of safety or stability that has been lost because of whatever circumstances that are outside of your control. And the oyster always comes in with this energy of like hardship, of course, because of course there is a pearl to be gained at the end of this, but in order to actually gain the pearl, it does require sort of hardship and grit and I want to say irritation, though it does feel a bit more worked up than irritation, but I'm just going to leave it at that. And to emphasize that, you have here movement and pain, right? So the movement card being sort of a change in circumstances that is perhaps making you or your counterpart feel insecure in terms of like your stability or your safety, or like it's very like root chakra related. So in terms of like your home, a comfort area or something like that. And because it's coming out with the pain energy with the oyster, right? It is not an easy or pleasant experience, but it is sort of necessary in order to gain some sort of pearl of wisdom. And I feel like it is sort of because I always see this oyster as being like the pearl's ready. It's just kind of, you need to harvest it and open it. So it feels like there is movement away from the pain energy. I feel like it's not, whatever the painful thing was, it has already happened. It's just sort of gaining the perspective, I guess, after the painful experience is sort of healed and past. But what you have here is the solidity inner core, which is just incredible because it's talking about this ecosystem, right, that you share with your counterpart, how your energies are combined, right, with this connection. But because it's sort of like this earth shattering kind of thing, again, it might not be that earth shattering. I'm just using that term because of the imagery here, but it's talking about some sort of shift or change that has caused like a tower moment is how I'm going to leave it. But what's gorgeous here is that you have this dove, which is representing hope, right? hope and change and sort of a fresh start. And I think that one or both of the counterparts are in this energy of the Four of Cups, which says meditation, but also it's coming through today with healing, especially because it's coming through with the Prince of Cups. Is that the Knight? The Knight of Cups? I think this is the Knight of Cups. But it's coming through with the message of introspection, right? So all of this sort of meditation, introspection, healing, gaining the pearl of wisdom from whatever this past experience was. And and there is a change coming through with that, because you have the Fortune card, which is talking about sort of like the wheel is turning, and what comes after that is the Two of Pentacles, which is talking about change. But because you have here the Ace of Pentacles to start, what this is telling me is that it's like you and your person coming together, or now meeting on the same page in some regard for something. And what's after that is that you have the Ten of Cups, harmony. But of course, the Ten of Cups talks about sort of the emotional fulfillment with another, with your counterpart. And also this Judgment card, which if you just look at the, like, I knew when I started using this deck that these two cards would come out together. The swans mirroring one another. So this is just emphasizing again that there is, whatever this painful experience was, for one or both of you, was almost like a tower moment in order to clear an energy that was interfering with this connection. And because the both of you have chosen this connection, or chosen each other, perhaps, like that kind of energy, it was necessary for some sort of structure to be dismantled in order for this new structure to be built, is kind of how this is feeling. Okay, so I want to say that if it is like, because it kind of does feel like one person has gone through this event while the other person is kind of maintaining a position of strength. So there could be that dynamic. Because here you have the zebra and the starfish, which is absolutely gorgeous. And it's coming out with the love card. So this zebra card I often describe as being like when you have connection to your intuition and source and all of that, you have sort of connection is basically what I'm going to say. It causes sort of physical consequences in your environment. So it could change how you appear. It could change like the job you're in. It could shift a whole bunch of things in your physical environment. And the starfish, which is kind of reflecting this tarantula, where there is sort of a spotlight, right? I sometimes see there's like this like spotlight on the tarantula where it's like put on the spot because there's been a loss of stability or structure. But the starfish is much more sort of comfortable in that spotlight energy. So even if there hasn't yet been sort of a rebuilding yet, right? It's like, because you're now connected to source or connected to your person, right? Connected to this ecosystem between you and your person, it's causing like physical changes within your actual physical environment, if that makes sense. That's sort of what I'm getting with this energy. And it's coming out with this, well, also the thing with the starfish is that is related to this tarantula is that when a starfish sort of loses a limb, it immediately grows back, right? It's all of this sort of energy of like resilience, being able to rebuild very quickly because you are connected to one another, right? So if there's this whole thing that I did in a previous reading where because you're connected to your counterpart who has perhaps gone through a similar cycle before, they have the ability to sort of share that wisdom with the other who is going through sort of the beginning stages, if that makes sense. So it allows for manifestation or change to occur much more quickly because it's like you have a very specific, tailored mentor or teacher who can help you through that cycle, right? It's like a very sort of like custom made program, or like a tutor, whatever it is. I hope that makes sense. I'm just gonna leave that. But then you have the growth plants card, which I absolutely adore because it's talking about, like, this is a very sort of established energy, right? It's like if one person is sort of going through a difficult time in terms of their stability and structure, it's like they can draw on this energy, which is much more sort of established and strong and not at risk at sort of being affected by external influences, is kind of how this is coming through. And then what's gorgeous here is that what I feel like is going to happen, I'm not it's like in the process of happening. I'm not sure if it is quite yet, but you have here the spider, which I love so much, for the spider and the tarantula to come out in the same reading, because this one is lost the web. Some sort of structure has been demolished, but now rebuilding it with the intention of rebuilding so that it matches or favors, favors the ecosystem of the connection, right? Rebuilding something that will work for the actual connection instead of being sort of this energy where it wasn't serving the connection. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and then finally you have here the tiger, which I love so much because, again, in that Aquarius reading, this tiger was being represented as like the queen in chess, where the queen has the ability to move in all directions with like sort of no limitations, in order to protect the energy of the king, who cannot move in that far of space, right? Like the kings are more limited in terms of their movement. So if one of the twins is going through a period where their movement is limited because a lack of resources or whatever it is, the other person is serving as sort of like a protection, right? Like somebody who's going to fiercely protect the spider as they rebuild their home or whatever it is, right? It's a very sort of protective energy in order to allow this one like space and time to heal or recover or to rebuild or regain whatever it is that's been lost, which is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, and then you have here the balance and trust card. Balance and trust. Something clicking into place, I want to say. It's kind of just like turning, it's the energy of like turning the wheel, but today it's looking like a screw, like screwing in some sort of physical structure is kind of how this is coming through. And with the trust card, I often talk about as being sort of like the third energy of the connection, where it's like manifestation happens a lot quicker in spiritual partnerships because there's a third energy between the twins that's independent of each of you that allows for this manifestation to come in more quickly. And so I feel like there's a lot of this energy that whatever is being built now in this stage, those two cards together, that's gorgeous. Whatever is being rebuilt in this stage, even if you and your counterpart are not in physical union yet, this new structure is going to serve the connection, or it is for the connection because of the trust that has been established already, is kind of how this is coming through. So I'm going to end it there. I'm going to move to the extended. We're going to talk about where's an area of focus and an area of growth for you. I do have other videos if you're interested in checking those out. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.